On Maruti Suzuki presents ESPNcricinfo T20 timeout powered by Intel. We're looking ahead to the game between Delhi and Punjab. Let's get views from Sanjay Manjrekar and Ian Bishop then.
We call it people technology.
Right, both these teams have to bounce back after defeats at the Wankhede Stadium. Let's get into our first preview point. And Nortje is now available, Bish. But who adds the best balance to Delhi's overseas combinations? Do they bring back Hetmeyer or do they straight away give a game to Nortje?
I think it's an easy one for me, providing that Nortje is not too impacted by his quarantine situation where he was inactive for a while. He comes straight back into that team based on what he did last season, based on the high pace value that he can give you. So I'd have Nortje straight back in for that reason. Curran definitely should go out for Nortje. It's whether Wokes now, for me, is replaced by Hetmeyer. It'll be a tough call.
Yeah, that's the call they have to take, Sanjay. They played their first game on a flat surface at the Wankhede and decided they didn't need the extra batting in the second game. That turned out to be a challenging pitch to bat on. So what do? Do they go back to the extra overseas batsman in Hetmeyer, or do they play the three overseas fast bowlers?
I don't see Hetmeyer getting a game purely because of how Wokes has bowled so far and what Deepak Chahar has done at the Wankhede Stadium, and Wokes is in that category, a guy who gets the ball to swing and seam around, and he's been doing that in his first couple of overs, so they won't drop Wokes.
All right, fair enough. Now, what about Punjab? Can they change things up at the top of their order? Sanjay, Mayank Agarwal looks like he's short on a little bit of form.
They might stick with Mayank Agarwal, who had a phenomenal IPL season the last season, at the top of the order. So if I read Anil Kumble and KL Rahul's approach, there are guys who don't want to straight away make changes depending on a couple of games. Having said that, really concerned about Mayank Agarwal. The last match, the way he got out with Deepak Chahar, it was a bit like Prithvi Shaw with his defensive technique. So that bothers me. His technique in Australia as well. So I don't know what's happened to this wonderful test player and who did so well in the IPL, but seems to have just lost his defensive game a little bit.
I mean, Chris Gayle's got a phenomenal record as opener, Bish. He can do a job at three. The same can be said of Mayank Agarwal. Looking at Agarwal's lack of form, would you be tempted to go Gayle up top and Mayank at three, or keep it as is?
I think it's very early in the season, gentlemen. Just a couple of games for each team. So like Sanjay, I'm very wary of teams making changes. Mayank and Rahul did so well last season that I am inclined to give him that extra run, if you can call it an extra. They've won one, they've lost one. So I think he deserves that ball that he got dismissed with, would have dismissed most people. So I think I'd give him the chance to continue playing the way that we hope that he can build on last season.
Should Punjab look at a restructuring of their overseas to give them more balance? Can they use an overseas all-rounder, either Moses Henriques, Fabian Allen, or even Chris Jordan?
Jordan is one that I was thinking because of his experience. And he got better towards the back end of last season. I thought he might have started. I didn't like the idea of Jai Richardson coming in as high as he did yesterday. Someone said one position too high yesterday, and I agree with it.
That would mean dropping a bowler after there's what's been a batting collapse in the last game, Sanjay. But would you go that way to just add better balance, one of the all-rounders in place of either Meredith or Jai Richardson?
106 all out. I'm sure they'll be concerned about their batting and might look to address that. That's a tempting option. It will be a little unfair on Riley Meredith, who had an expensive spell in the first match, but came back quite well in the second. But if they are insecure about their batting, then it makes sense to have somebody like a Moises Henriques, and they'll keep an eye on Nicholas Pooran, how he's going for a couple of games, because then Moises also becomes an option.
Now, will Delhi go with that same lineup? They decided not only to bring in the extra overseas seamer last game, Sanjay, but they also replaced Amit Mishra with Lalit Yadav, who had a brief stint in the middle order. Would you stick with that combination? Lalit Yadav gets another game for you?
He looked good, didn't he? I mean, just the kind of player that you wanted in that game. Very steady, seems to have a nice technique, very balanced, tall batsman. So I don't see much changing with their batting order. It will be a concern with especially Ajinkya Rahane being short of confidence, but I don't see them restructuring that too much.
Well, they did make a change after one game, Bish, and they decided they don't want to play a wrist spinner necessarily. Would you go with what they did in the last game, or would you consider bringing Amit Mishra back?
Spin is taken. It's one of the reasons, if we revert to the previous conversation, why you'd probably go with Moses Henriques if there's a change, because spin has taken, I think, 3 wickets or 4 wickets at most at the Wankhede this season. I might have given it one too many. So I'd be hesitant to look to bring another spinner if I have other options to go there. So I don't see that changing. The ball is swung, it is seamed down at the Wankhede, so I wouldn't go there.
All right. Punjab were a team that played 2 wrist spinners last season, but they gave MURUGAN ASHWIN preference this time, Sanjay. Would you be tempted to bring Ravi Bishnoi in?
The way Punjab Kings have gone, they might look to give him a long rope, play him a couple of games, but my thoughts on him, Ashwin hasn't bowled well at all. And Bishnoi had a great start to the last IPL, so he's an option. I wouldn't make that change yet, but if that is made, you'll understand why Bishnoi has replaced M. Ashwin, because he's done his case not too much of. He hasn't strengthened his case in the way he's bowled in a couple of games.
Yeah, there were those of us that felt if they had to play one wrist spinner, Bish, that maybe Bishnoi would be the preferred spinner to M. Ashwin. Do they revisit that in your eye for now?
If we're looking at form, DC have 2 critical left-handed batsmen, Shikhar Dhawan and Rishabh Pant, critical to their success. And Bishnoi has this huge googly. His leg break doesn't spin as much as maybe MURUGAN ASHWIN. And for that reason, I would look at the possibility of that ball going away from those 2 critical left-handers. And he can bowl to right-handers as well. But I'm looking at those matchups, and I'm thinking that he gives me the edge.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much, Ian Bishop, Sanjay Manjrekar. This was us looking at the game between Delhi and Punjab on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPNcricinfo T20 Timer, powered by Intel.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。